If you could have any type of superpower, what would it be?
Yeah, to completely and accurately read people's emotions. All human decision making is guided by the same parameters. You make your decisions based on what you care about. So you start looking at what people care about.
Yo, what's up, guys? Before we get into today's interview, I've got some amazing news for you all. Look, let's face it, the last 12 to 18 months for all of us have been a little bit crazy. Life and times just aren't like what they used to be, right? And some people are thriving, some people are just surviving. And what is the difference between the people that are really getting into what it is they want and creating a life that they desire and the people that are just getting by? What I've realized is these people have actually taken the time to stop, reevaluate what is happening right now, and go from there. So I'm proud to announce that the Dream Out Loud family has created the first ever Dream Out Loud event called Redefine You. This event is going to be a one-day event live on the Gold Coast, Australia. But don't worry, if you're not in the Gold Coast, Australia, it's also going to be streamed virtual. So every single person that's listening to this right now or watching this, you guys can actually get access to this event and come and watch live, no matter where you are in the world. What this event is all going to be about, it's really taking the time for you to take a step back, redefine your life, reevaluate, reassess what is happening, who you are, what it is you want, and then create a really great bridge on how to actually get there within the next 6 to 12, 18 months. This event is just going to be absolutely freaking amazing. I've made it super affordable for everybody. It's only $47 a ticket. You guys can get on virtually. You can come live in person. And for all of my listeners right now, if you use the code DREAM10, you're going to get a further $10 off the event ticket just from actually being a listener of the show, okay? So I really look forward to seeing all of you guys there. Come in person or stream this virtually. It's going to be amazing. And just imagine here for a second if this was the event. Imagine 5 years from now, if you look back right now, and this was the event that you really decided to draw the line in the sand and redefine who you are, what it is you want, and what you want to do. And because of the decision you've made today, you've ended up in a much better position 3, 4, 5 years from now. Because here's the thing, if you think back 5 years ago from now, it feels like that time just went so fast, doesn't it? It feels like it was just yesterday. And that's exactly what's going to happen with the next 5 years. But now you've got the choice right now to make a better decision to attend this one-day event and stream this. Be with us, be with the family, really look and redefine your whole life, what it is you want, what it is, where you want to go, and let's roll up our sleeves and make it happen. Guys, hit the link below in the description, grab your ticket today, use the code DREAM10, get a further $10 off. It's going to bring down only $37, and I'm going to see you there. Okay, today's guest is an author, a speaker, ex-FBI, and was actually the FBI's leading hostage negotiator for several years. During his 24-year career in the Bureau, he was trained in the art of negotiation, not only by the FBI, but Scotland Yard and Harvard Law School. He also received the Attorney General's Award for Excellence in Law Enforcement and FBI Agents Association Award for Distinguished and Exemplary Service. He has since gone on to teach at universities all over, including Harvard University, teaching at the Art of Negotiation, and is now the CEO and founder of the Black Swan Group, which teaches world-class negotiation tactics and leadership training for every step of your career. So please help me and welcome the guy who went from selling seeds and Christmas cards door to door as a young kid to now a world-class speaker and trainer, ex-FBI negotiation expert, and the author of Never Split the Difference, Negotiating as If Your Life Depends on It, my friend, Mr. Chris Voss.
Thank you for having me on.
Thank you so
Apologize
much.
for the complicated words. You know, the more syllables a word has, the more important it is, right?
That's exactly right. I say it every time. When I started this podcast, I was like, I want to give every one of my guests, an incredible introduction. And then I forgot that I barely know how to read. And I started this, and then every new episode, I'm like, wow, this is so challenging for me. So the hardest part of the interview is just reading the bio. But you know, I probably butchered that, but everyone's gonna be able to listen to this and really get an idea for who you are, what you do, and just how freaking amazing you are at all of that. So I appreciate you coming on, Chris.
Thanks. It's my pleasure.
So I've got a couple rapid fire questions I want to hit you so my listeners can get to know you really fast, and then we can jump into a bit of the meat. Are you ready?
All right, let's go for it.
Beautiful. So where did you grow up?
Mount Pleasant, Iowa, small town in southeast Iowa, Midwest United States.
Love it. And where do you live now?
Las Vegas, Nevada.
Beautiful place. What is your favorite food?
Probably ribeye steak.
Love it. And this would be an interesting one. If you could have any type of superpower, what would it be?
Yeah, to completely and accurately read people's emotions.
Yeah, that's amazing. This is so interesting because my superpower that I always want to have would actually be pretty much what you have. It's like, I think if you can really master the art of negotiation and persuasion and be the absolute best in the world, like it's a freaking great superpower to have. Hey,
It's been good to me so far.
I love it. What is your X factor?
X factor. Wow. You know, I like to learn, and not just learn, but learn and apply. I mean, I like, you know, I like the idea of being able to outthink people that are much smarter than I am.
Yeah, I love it. And what was your dream job when you were a kid?
Wow. You know, I don't know. I don't know that I ever really dreamed of a particular job growing up. I don't know, maybe be cowboy. I don't know.
Yeah. And
Be a superhero. Be a superhero. Yeah, I want to be a superhero.
Do you think that's somewhat manifested into your life now? Like, you're not flying around with a cape on, but you know, negotiating and saving people's lives is kind of.
I like the idea of helping people. I really like the idea of helping people. Yeah. You know, I mean, some of those sort of cliche things, helping people that need help. Yeah, I like that a lot.
Yeah, lovely. Who's someone who's inspired you to get to where you are and why?
Wow. You know, there's probably been a variety of people. I remember I met a guy named John Domenico Pico. He was UN hostage negotiator that got all the Western hostages out of Lebanon in the 80s. And I was just blown away by that. And it was an inspiring dude. Is an inspiring dude. You know, he walked in. He wrote a great book called Man Without a Gun. And he basically walked in by himself each time, met with Hezbollah, and talked them into letting people go. I mean, that really inspired me.
Wow, let's check that one out. That's awesome. So I would love to first start. How did you get to where you are? Like, how does somebody get into the FBI and then become the leading negotiation expert and trainer?
And you know, most people that join the FBI don't start out their professional career as an FBI agent or even thinking they're going to head that way. Some do, but there are minority. You know, vast majority of agents are second career professionals. They start out doing something else. Circumstances of life put them in the direction of the FBI. I was a local cop. At the time, all I ever wanted to be was a local cop, and I get interested in federal law enforcement because a man that I met with Secret Service said, Secret Service, you know, I traveled all over the world with the Secret Service. And I remember thinking, like, somebody paid you to travel around the world? Now that sounds cool. And so I got interested in the FBI. I didn't really know what the FBI was about, you know. Fortunately or unfortunately, if I'd have known, I'd have still got in. But it ended up being a great ride. But I just started out wanting to be a cop.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I'm really curious to sort of know so I would imagine the negotiation um, tactics, negotiation, sort of teaching and learnings that the FBI does would probably be like world class. I'm curious to know who teaches the FBI. Like, is it backed by, is it kind of like NLP type of hypnosis, sort of like Milton Erickson type of thing? Is it stem from there, or is it its own sort of thingy?
Yeah, well, first of all, world class is kind of like an overblown term a little bit. It sounds pretty cool,
Yeah.
but I mean, I don't know that the bar for world class is all that high. But the Bureau started, hostage negotiation really got to start with the NYPD. A guy named Frank Bowles and a psychologist named Harvey Schlossberg saw the need, and a couple incidents happened that caught law enforcement's attention. The biggest one that got everybody's attention was the '72 Munich Olympics. But there were some other things that happened in New York. I think the Olympics got NYPD's attention because there's a very large Jewish population in New York City. And of course, Israelis, Jews were the target of that hostage taking, the murder in Munich in 1972. So NYPD got credit for starting it. Now, to be completely fair, the idea had its seeds in other places at the same time, because the circumstances that caused NYPD to think about it, other places did too. And then the Bureau had some stuff go bad. Most of the law enforcement organizations had SWAT teams. They figured that's all that they needed. They didn't know they needed negotiators. Bureau had SWAT, just like almost everybody else. And the Bureau had a massive screw up with bad negotiations, and got sued, taken to the cleaners over mishandling. So the Bureau looked to the NYPD to originally learn the skills. That's where the Bureau, FBI, got started, was learning from the NYPD. And then the profession overall, both NYPD and the FBI, started learning and trying to get better at it, and realized that, we all realized we needed to pick stuff up from other places. Probably the next really big turning point in the learning curve for the FBI really came when Gary Nessner took over the FBI's crisis negotiation unit. Gary Nessner and a guy named Fred Lansley. And their thought was really that it was more crisis intervention than classic bargaining. And so they they had experience with suicide hotlines. And so the Bureau's learning, really, the turning point there was crisis intervention as a learning model, learning from different crisis intervention experts, psychologists that specialized in that. And that was really the next big infusion of thought for the FBI. And as we move forward under Gary, and then subsequently, we started looking, the next big influence was really combining bargaining with crisis intervention, and then learning that it was all sort of rolled up into one, which, for lack of a better term, is emotional intelligence. So the Bureau's really first started learning from NYPD, then learning from crisis intervention, and then the emotional intelligence learning that came after that. Now, I'm not connected with their learning journey like I was before, but everybody's learning from neuroscience these days.
Mm, yeah. So okay. So from what I can understand, it's sort of about, it's really coming in with a win-win. So like, how can we actually help people understand this? And because a big thing is, what sometimes people think is negotiating or selling or persuasion is manipulative and it's bad. So how come this is a skill that most people should master and get really good at?
I'll answer that question because I had some more thoughts occur to me as to where the FBI has learned from. The FBI has learned a lot in today's modern day crisis negotiation. There's really three entities that trade a lot of information on how to get better best practices. It's the FBI, it's the London Metropolitan Police, Scotland Yard. It is the negotiators in Australia, and the Canadians, the RCMP. And we really started exchanging information pretty much between those entities when we started bumping into each other all the time and at different embassies around the world because their citizens were being taken hostage. So, I'm showing up and I'm seeing a guy from the RCMP that I've seen before. I'm seeing a guy from New South Wales that I've seen before, on behalf of our citizens. So we start bumping into each other. London Met's overseas all the time on kidnappings. And we're like, hey, we're working against these same groups. Let's exchange knowledge. And so there's really been a tremendous exchange of knowledge between those agencies because we have a tendency to cross paths all the time in crises.
Yeah, that makes sense. So
back to your question, which I
yes.
forgot what it was.
Yeah, that's okay. So what I guess I was asking, when people do think of negotiating, which I've done your masterclass
Why is it
multiple
not
times.
evil?
Yeah, that's the big thing. And sometimes people think, well, if you've got the power to manipulate and win, it's like some people can kind of look at it in that evil sort of way. So how come this is a skill that most people really need to master and that they actually do every single day?
Well, it's an effective tool, period, and or a set of tools, which means by definition it's neutral. Now, how it's wielded in the hands of the hands of the user. Like in one person's hand, a scalpel saves a life. In another person's hand, it's a knife and it's an instrument of murder. It's really who's using it. And it's kind of an interesting discussion around empathy, what we refer to as tactical empathy, very close to what Daniel Goleman would call cognitive empathy. And there's all these crazy connotations of the word empathy. And every now and then you'll see an article that says the dark side of empathy, because empathy is as understood as to what it really is. It's not sympathy, it's not compassion. It's actually a ridiculously effective emotional influence tool. And you'll see an article about the dark side of empathy because it's so effective, which means it can be used for nefarious purposes. Cognitive empathy that Daniel Goleman talks about, he says that the best users of it are sociopaths because it's so effective and because it's effective and durable and low maintenance, which is exactly what a sociopath is after. Communication, ability to communicate with people that doesn't require a lot of work. Sociopaths are not known for their work ethic. You think hard worker, you don't think sociopath. You think somebody who wants maximum results from minimum effort. And that's why somebody shared with me the other day an article called The Dark Side of Empathy, because it really is so effective if you decouple it from the idea that it's sympathy. And then it's in the hands of the beholder. And yeah, you could use it for manipulation. You can use it for good or for evil. It depends upon what you want it for.
Yeah, so it really comes down to the person. Same thing with money, It's like sometimes people think, well, money makes you a worse person. Well, it's really like, no, it's just an amplifier. If you're a shit person, it's gonna make you a shittier person. If you're a great person, you get to do more good. And and the more and more I've learned about negotiation, sales, and persuasion, I guess the more I've been able to do good with it, and make more impact with it. So I guess it's so true there. For people that are perhaps listening to this and they're thinking, well, I'm not when am I ever gonna negotiate and have to save a kidnapping from a bank robbery, which would totally have to hear your story in a minute, but I'm never gonna do that. Where else can they use these types of skills?
Everywhere. When you're buying coffee, when you're at the grocery store, when you're working on your cable bill, when you're buying a car, when you're negotiating you're influencing your significant other. Because, the bank robber, the kidnapper, all human decision making is guided by the same parameters. You make your decisions based on what you care about. So you start looking at what people care about. And there are universal aspects to it. For example, if there weren't universal emotional aspects to human decision making, what countries in the world is Facebook not a powerful social influence? Only the countries where it's banned. And it's banned because of the universal nature of human influence, emotional intelligence, emotional influence. And it's so powerful that some countries are so afraid of the persuasiveness of the social media that they ban it. They ban it in China. Wait a minute, don't Asians think different than Arabs? Well, if they did, China wouldn't ban it. So there are a lot of things, if we look for them, that show that human decision making is pretty universal. Influence is pretty universal. Every single hostage negotiation team in the world uses the same set of skills. The hostage negotiation team in Tokyo, in Cape Town, South Africa, in Bogota, Colombia, in Baghdad, Iraq, because human decision making, regardless of the circumstances, meets the same basic guidelines.
Right. So I would love, like, I've heard a bit of this story because I've done your stuff. And by the way, you just mentioned before, so you can use it when buying a car. The last car I bought, I know shit, Chris, used your I forget what you call it, but your actual strategy.
Yeah.
And I was in tears with my friend laughing. I'm like, this works incredibly well. And I think I actually got my car for, I was saying this morning, I think I got it close to half price for what they're actually
Nice.
asking. And I was like, I can't believe this is just incredible, And what you teach is just some insane stuff. So to kind of give everybody a bit of a backstory on you and the work you have done, do you want to share a bit about your, the bank robbery story? How'd that all go down?
Yeah, well, bank robbery with hostages, Brooklyn, New York. I'm in the office, Lower Manhattan. Buddy of mine, Charlie, walks up, says, a bank alarm, hostages, Brooklyn, let's go. We rolled out then, and the first bad guy to get on the phone with us, we didn't realize, but actually emulated the characteristics of a great CEO or great business leader at the negotiation table. A great CEO, great business leader, the most
What
influential person on the other side of the table.
what made you think that? Like, what gave that away?
Well, we didn't, in hindsight, learn.
Okay.
So I didn't learn this till I was in Harvard. I didn't really understand that. I'm doing a negotiation at Harvard, and one guy says, yeah, a great business leader, great CEO is always going to blame people that are not in the room. So if the CEO is at the table, the CEO is going to say, I got a board of directors. I don't have any influence on what's going on. If I make the wrong decision, my board is going to fire me. They're laying all the responsibility off on somebody else so that they don't get pinned down. So I don't know this at the time, but the bank robber in Brooklyn, he literally starts out saying, like, look, the guys that I'm with are dangerous. I'm scared of these guys.
Mhm.
Like, I don't know what they're going to do. And as a matter of fact, I don't want them to catch me talking to you on the phone. So every now and then I'm going to have to hang up or put you on speaker because I'm scared of these guys. Now, this dude was in complete control, and there weren't a bunch of other people in the bank with him. There was actually only one other bank robber, not a whole bunch of them. And the other bank robber was frightened out of his mind. He was worried about getting killed. And now we don't know this at the time. We think our initial assessment of this guy is that he's an inadequate personality because he won't take responsibility for anything. He seems really tentative. We're feeding it to our psychologists, and they're like, wow, this guy sounds like an inadequate personality. I mean, like, he was extra adequate. He was anything but inadequate. But he understood that if he pretended like he had no authority or influence, that he couldn't get pinned down on a decision. And then, 10 years later, I'm at Harvard and they're saying, like, no, that's a tactic of a really smart CEO. Blame the board. Then you can't make a decision. Now, I got no idea this was going down at the time, but this guy was a highly manipulative, control freak guy. And he knew instinctively that in order to keep from getting backed into a corner, he just had to pretend he had no authority.
Yeah. And so, okay, so you get called to the job. You're the first one who gets put on the phone with this guy?
Well, and to clarify, if I may, we went to the job. Now, we were not summoned, and I had, I mean, you want to really get ahead in your career. I had an executive in the government once say, run to trouble. Now, I had done this sort of inadvertently throughout my law enforcement career because I liked excitement. Now, the great thing about running to trouble in whatever organization you're in is the people you work for notice that when the bell rings, you show up. It's, forgive me for an American expression. We like to say in the United States, answer the bell.
Mm-hmm.
So you show up when a bell rings. You don't got to be wait to summoned. You have great initiative. Employers, bosses love somebody with initiative to go after the problem. So it impresses the people that you work for. Secondly, the flip side of that is if you're running into trouble, then there aren't that many people that are going to second guess what's going on. Like it's almost a no-lose situation. You run into a crisis, there aren't a bunch of people saying like, hold on, we need to think this through and make sure we do the right thing. The paralysis of analysis or the second guessing in the moment is at a minimum because the garbage has hit the fan. Things are a mess. House is burning down. Very few things you do to get criticized. So running the trouble is a great strategy, whatever you do for a living. Now you got to want to play in a big game. But if you really understand that here's the opportunity to shine with the least amount of criticism. Now that doesn't mean there's no criticism. You can never eliminate that. If you're afraid of criticism, you need to stay in bed. But with the least amount of criticism, run into chaos. So and I'd make the mistake of not showing up one other time, and to this day regret the one time I didn't show. So, the bank alarm, Charlie says, let's go, we go. And we get out there, show up to command post, then you get to the negotiation operations center. We get a big representation, NYPD, FBI. It's a bank with hostages, which by definition, it's kind of going to be a joint operation. We know the PD guys pretty well. We've trained with them on an annual basis. NYPD's always got this great annual training event. They always invited us. We knew these guys. Blended the teams. We're speaking basically, we have the same vernacular. Hostage negotiation teams tend to blend very well. SWAT teams do not, because the SWAT teams typically have different coding. You look at a building, you're going to. Well, not chefs in the kitchen, but for example, like one SWAT team's going to call the front of the building the white side, and the other SWAT team's going to call the front of the building the black side. Or they're gonna, ground level might be level 1 for one team, ground level might be the A level for another team. It's just color coding alphabet so that they can talk to each other. And if they say white A1, that might mean the ground level front of the building on the left side as you face the building. To one team, to another team, it's going to be the back of the building.
Yeah.
And that's why they have a tendency to not blend as well. But hostage negotiators don't have that problem. So PD commander, our two commanders, the PD says, I'll take the inside. The bureau guy says, I'll take the outside. I'll be on the inner perimeter. I'll control communication there. PD commander, a guy named his name has come to me. Hugh McGowan, great guy, brilliant dude. Hugh points at a PD detective, says, you're first on the phone. He points at me. He says, you're the coach. Puts a PD detective on the phone, guy named Joe. Joe does a great job taking all the negative energy out of the situation. What some people would call a stalemate after about 5 hours. In point of fact, almost all the threat and the negativity is almost all completely gone. There's no energy, which means there's no bad energy. So Hugh decides to swap negotiators. He points to Joe. He says, "I'm going to pull you." He points to me. Says, "You're on the phone." So I'm second at bat.
Right. Okay. So take us through this, right? Because I'm imagining in many different negotiations or even business deals or anything, you could walk into something where the person could be more negatively charged, which in this situation they're more like they would be wanting to get it their way, right? And then you could also
Right.
walk into situations where it's like, hey, how can we do business here and make it a win-win, right? So how do you kind of walk us through this? What are some tactics you'd kind of use when the person on the other end of the deal is more like they're not budging? It's like, I want it my way, and that's how it's going to be.
Yeah, and I will tell you, I'm very cautious of the phrase "win-win," and we don't actually use it at all. Now, that doesn't mean you want the other side to lose. We're not win-lose. We're really we're into positive sum. You know, zero sum, I win, you lose. Positive sum, we both get gains. The problem with win-win is people use that phraseology to exploit other people frequently. If I get into a conversation with somebody and they say, "Look, I want to do a win-win deal," and they say that right off the bat, I know they mean win-lose, and they mean to cut my throat.
Wow. Okay.
And so that's why we're very very cautious of it. I was doing training one time for a company, and one of their top salespeople who chose not to be in the training, I bump into at the cafeteria, and this guy says, "Hey, like I hear you say splitting the difference is bad, and I hear you that you say that win-win negotiations are bad. And I want you to know that I split the difference and do win-win all the time. So why do you think it's bad?" And I say to him, "Well, in point of fact, most cutthroat negotiators just double or triple what they want. And then they say, let's do a win-win deal. Let's split the difference." And they wind up where they wanted to be all along. And it was all just a big subterfuge. It was a con. It was an illusion. They acted like they gave in, but they didn't. They just doubled what they wanted to fool the other side. And the guy kind of looked sheepish and he said, "Yeah, I always ask for more than what I want so I can settle where I really want to be." That's your win-win guy who says
Yeah.
win-win right off the bat.
Yeah. So it's a facade. So it's kind of just coming
It's
in
a
with,
facade.
yeah, coming in with no bullshit. And it's like, let's actually just resolve this. So, so you've got, someone who's kind of, and I'm just using the hostage negotiation because I'm assuming that this guy probably wasn't like, hey, thanks so much for showing up. I've learned my lesson. Can I come out now? I'm sure he was probably like,
Exactly.
leave me alone. So how do you kind of dissolve this and flip it to eventually have a good deal? Like, are there some certain
Well,
tactics you
and as you
use?
said, the guy says, "I want it my way." I want it my way. He's not going to give
Yeah.
in. Well, then you come in with emotional intelligence, understanding approach. Like the application of empathy moves the deal towards you. Tactical empathy moves the deal towards you. In many cases, when you get a "that's right" out of somebody, when you get genuine "that's right," a genuine feeling of being understood, the deal is just around the corner. And I love that metaphor for being just around the corner, because typically, if something's just around the corner, you're really close and you can't see it. And that's why a lot of people have trouble with the application of empathy or getting a "that's right" out of somebody or making them feel understood, because they don't see how that's immediately going to make the deal. And again, if it's just around the corner, you are so close and you can't see it. So if your gut instinct isn't telling you you're close, you got no idea. So with the other person that's not going to move, what's the feeling from the other side? The feeling from the other side is, I really want what I want. So how do I articulate that, which simultaneously deactivates it, softens them up? So if you refuse to move, I'm going to say, "Wow, sounds like you really know what you want. Sounds like you've given this a lot of thought. And then I'm going to let that sink in. And by sink in, by sink in, I mean, there are going to be neurochemical changes in your brain that's going to change your mindset in the moment. And somewhere or another, I've done this enough times that I rely on it. I know a new path is going to open up to me. And if you've never done it before, you don't see that. You don't have that gut instinct for it. A neuroscientist that I listen to all the time now, a guy named Andrew Huberman, Huberman Labs podcast neuroscientist professor at Stanford. He says, as human beings, we think in terms of duration, path, and outcome. Where do I want to be? How am I going to get there? How long is it going to take me to get there? And this idea of the deal being around the corner, you don't no longer see the path if you've never done it before. You don't know it's around the corner. And since you don't know it's around the corner, you don't know where you're going to end up or how long it's going to take you to get there. Until you're used to it, which only comes with practice, but does come with practice, then it's going to throw you off. And then after you've done it a few times, you're like, all right, this is cool. I'm just going to follow the process. It's going to work out.
Yeah. So how about for people that, so let's say they go through these things and they understand that, because it's kind of a game, and that's kind of what I do enjoy when having conversations with people. And I'm sure you do too. It's like, it's a bit of a game. It's like, this is fun. So how about for people that, perhaps they feel incongruent saying or doing things like, it doesn't feel like, that's not something I would say, or is this just something they've got to get over? It's like, if you want to play in this field, you need to get over that. Or is there a way for them to kind of deal with that better mentally? Like, do they have to be someone they're not, or is it better to use this in their own way?
Well, first of all, the first part that you said that it's fun, it is fun.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. And your life, life actually becomes much more enjoyable. Like we've got a business coach, Black Swan Group. We apply the Black Swan method. That doesn't mean that we still don't need business organizing principles separate from negotiation. We do. We use EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System, and we got an EOS coach, a guy named Jonathan Smith, phenomenal EOS coach. Now he's working with us for so long that finally he's like, you guys got to teach me this tactical empathy thing. Teach me a little bit of the Black Swan method. Because, about a year ago, in the midst of the pandemic, we're charging based on the value that we bring to the table, which means we charge a lot. Mm-hmm. And he saw us raising our prices while he was not. And he's like, you guys got to teach me how to raise my prices. Well, you guys are raising. And so we said, cool, but you got to get in a lot of small stakes practice for high stakes results. So he's got a contractor putting in a generator at his house because he lives someplace where the power goes out. And the guy was argumentative, and he tells us, normally I would have argued back, but instead I used tactical empathy on this guy. This dude loves me now. And I love the fact that before I'd have argued with him, I'd have called him names, which means I'd have felt horrible for the entire day. Now I put tactical empathy in place. Not only did I get my generator ahead of everybody else, but I didn't feel horrible all day. And so, it is fun. It is satisfying to do this. Now, the second part of your question, when we introduce people to this, they're like, it doesn't feel right. That's not the way I would say it. It feels unnatural. Well, you don't know that what you're saying feels like how you do it, or that's not me. That was learned. You just forgot how long ago you learned it, and it's so baked into your neural circuits, you've come to think it's part of your identity when it's learned. Which means if you learn that, you could learn this. All you got to do is get into practice, which is another thing, actually, it gets me back to Huberman, because Huberman talks about something called, and other people talked about something called neuroplasticity, your ability to learn, or how awkward or how much of a barrier feeling awkward is. And you were just talking to me, well, that feels awkward, so I don't want to do it. Well, along about our mid-20s, our neuroplasticity, our ability to learn, our ability to cope with awkwardness goes dormant in our mid-20s. That doesn't mean we lose it. It's still there. It's just gone dormant. Now, actually, the feeling of awkwardness is a feeling of your learning ability being woken back up. And the circuits are now being run back through a part of your brain that's kind of been dormant for a while. And that's what people, anybody over the age of 25 is pretty much reacting to, which is actually a really good sign. It's actually an indicator of accelerated learning if you embrace it as opposed to running from it.
Right. So how is there ways to sort of like strengthen that muscle? Is it just a matter of like, is that just the whole learning something new every day kind of thing? Brushing your teeth with your left hand or what?
Well, yeah, you've seen me talk about brushing my teeth with my left hand. Yeah. There's a number of different wacky ways to wake it up. And similar to brushing your teeth with your left hand, like if you're into any sort of physical fitness, doing exercises that challenge your ability to keep your balance actually also wakes up your neuroplasticity. I mean, think like if you brush your teeth with your left hand, stand on one leg while you're doing it. Or, I got a doctor that gave me this balance board. And he said, brush your teeth while you're trying to balance the balance board.
Oh, wow.
And I got a girlfriend now that I got a great relationship with. I'm very close to. So we get to the point where she finally seen me brush my teeth before I go to bed, and like I'm on this balance board. It's just like, what are you doing? Like, has a circus come to town? What you? The next thing I know, you're going to be patting your head and rubbing your stomach and trying to brush your teeth. And I'm like, hey, listen, baby.
Hey, her
This
mind
brain is going to stay sharp.
Yeah, that's right. She's probably just thinking like, man, if he can multitask like that, imagine what I'm in for that. Chris, there's something I know you guys do at your events and your seminars you do is like the role play situations. And if you're up for it, I'd love to do something like this. And I've definitely never role played with a guy before, so maybe this is my learning. But if you're up for something like that, I'd let's give it a crack. How does that kind of go down?
Yeah, well, and I may offer you modifications on the role play as we start, just to make it more of a learning experience. But however you want to do it, man.
Cool. Yeah. However, I'm all yours. So like, what do you kind of?
Oh, you want me to suggest a role play?
Yeah. Like how do you like the same kind of things you put people under pressure to be like, how do they actually react in these situations?
Well, there's pressure in that, and then we could do one that's actually because sometimes the role plays are hard because it's an artificial situation.
Mm-hmm.
So we do the 60 seconds or she dies thing, which is high pressure, just in order to give you we'll do a quick 60 seconds or she dies, and then we'll do the other follow-up one that's based on some of the same skills. So I'm the bank robber, you're the hostage negotiator. I'm trapped in a bank. You don't know how many bank robbers, you don't know how many hostages. All you know is that you and your law enforcement colleagues have the bank surrounded. It's your job to talk me out. You're going to call in on the phone. When we're ready to get started, you're going to say, ring, ring. I'm going to answer. We'll be off to the races. Before that, you need to only know what your restrictions are. And these are the real life restrictions in a real life hostage negotiation.
Mm-hmm.
You can't give me transportation.
Mm-hmm.
You can't give me weapons. You can't give me drugs or alcohol. And fourth and last is there's no hostage exchange.
So I can't ask for the hostage out.
Well, that's not an exchange.
Oh, what would be an exchange?
Your mother's here. If she comes in, if we let your mother come in, we let people go.
Okay.
Your priest is here. If we let your priest come in, we let people go. If I come in, we let people go. That's an exchange.
Yeah. Okay.
So there's no hostage exchange. People come out, nobody comes in.
Okay. So the whole intention is to get people out, and I can't give you any of the good stuff that you probably
No
want.
weapons, no drugs, no transportation.
Yeah.
So unless you have any other questions, we could do it.
Okay. So am I calling you?
Yeah, all you gotta do is say ring, ring.
Okay, ring, ring.
I need a car in 60 seconds or she dies.
Hi, who am I speaking with?
I have no intention of telling you that. What are you, an idiot? You think I'm going to tell you what my name is? You got 55 seconds.
Okay, well, I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Morgan. You're speaking with Morgan, and I'm here to help you today. Now,
okay, help me by giving me a car. You
okay,
want to help me? Give me a car. So
okay,
we've agreed that you're going to help me by giving me a car. Is that what we did?
Yeah, I'm
just
in
make an
agreement.
agreement.
I'm here to help with you today. And first, I need.
No, don't give me that
Morgan.
help nonsense. I want a car.
You want
what
a car?
Part of that don't you understand? You got 45 seconds. That's the help I want.
How?
You want to give me a help? Give me a car.
Okay, I'm here to help you. How do you
keep
suppose I do this?
saying that, and it sounds like a lie. You've got 40 seconds. Stop with the help crap and give me a car.
How do you suppose I can get you a car in 40 seconds?
So you can get me a car. It's only a matter of time.
We can definitely work on getting you a car, but in 40 seconds. No, don't give me this
we can work stuff. Either you can or you can't. How much time do you need?
Well, how much time do you need?
How much time do you need?
I'm going to need a lot longer than 40 seconds here. Who am I speaking with?
Good. I'm glad we've agreed that you can get a car. You're expressing the only problem to giving me a car is time. So tell me how much time you need.
We're going to need a lot longer than 40 seconds. I'm not sure how long it's going to take me here today.
How long? Then call me back when you know.
Okay, and when I call you back, how would you like me to address you?
Call me back when you know how much time you're gonna need.
Sounds like you've really thought this plan through today.
I just hung up.
Man, that's intense.
I guarantee you your heart rate is up right now.
Absolutely. So what? Okay, so you've hung up. Would it be a matter like, would you expect this person to call back, or would I call back?
Call me back, see what happens.
Here we go. Oh my God. Well, he's gonna ask, "Where's the car?"
No,
I'm gonna say, "Okay,
why?"
Okay.
Now, how did you get yourself into that position to begin with?
Me?
Yeah.
Because I came to the agreement saying, "Yeah, we can get you a car."
Well, you started out with weasel words.
Yeah. What's that weasel word?
I'm here to help you.
Okay.
That's a weasel word. Now, you know what I want. Help like beauty's in the eye of the beholder. What do you really want to do when you call me on the phone? You want to put me in handcuffs?
Yeah.
Does that help?
No.
That's a deception, is it not?
Yeah.
Now, what was the next deception?
I'm
gonna need more than 40 seconds.
Yeah.
That makes it sound like it's see one of the things in business negotiations to start with. First of all, be leery of the word help. I learned that a long time ago. You know, help is in the eye of the beholder. Help when somebody says they want to help me, no, they don't. They got an agenda they're trying to put on me.
Mm-hmm.
Problem one. Problem two. People really don't know how to tell the truth about not being able to do something. The vast majority, and there's a massive amount of lying and deception in business and personal interactions. Now, the word lie has all this evil intent to it. But in most cases, it's defensiveness. Defensiveness. I don't know how to tell you the truth. So I'm gonna use some words that are, you know, kind of weaselly. Not because I'm trying to cheat you, but I don't have a gentle way of saying it's not going to happen. One of the really big things that we teach in a Black Swan method is how to say no gently and keep the conversation going. How to say no and not damage the relationship. There's the real key. how to be honest in a way that the other side can hear it.
So what would I have done better? How do you do that better? How do I say no? Because I guess that's what I was trying to say. I'm not getting you a car, but I was trying to calm you, or I guess build some sort of rapport, like by telling you, hey, my name's Morgan, what's your name? He, angry to that. So what do you what do you do?
Well, so when you're at a business gathering, you walk up to somebody. What's the first, and you want to introduce yourself? What's the first physical thing you do?
Smile.
Put out your hand, right?
Yeah,
You probably smile and put out your hand simultaneously.
Yeah.
And then what's the first thing you say?
Hi.
And then?
My name is Morgan.
Right. And then what do you do?
What's your name?
You wait for them to respond. You don't walk up to people and say, hi, my name's Morgan. What's your name? Probably. You probably put out your hand and say, hi, I'm Morgan. And you wait for them to respond. You wait for them to choose the next move. Mm-hmm. Now, you typically taught, get the other person's name, use it over and over, because they love the sound of their name. Mm-hmm. And that's one of those things that's been so overused.
It's so annoying now. Yeah.
And I know that as soon as you get my name, you're going to start beating me with it to try to beat me into submission. Which is why you want to give the other person the option to give their name. Because my first name is actually precious to me. And I don't want it used against me. Mm. So the first thing is you give me a chance to voluntarily give it. And then if it's voluntary on my side and I feel like it's voluntary, that's a whole separate dynamic in the conversation. Now, there are a lot of salespeople that can't wait to get your name because that's how they're going to manipulate you into the deal. Mm. And there are a few things like that. Getting them to say yes is another thing. Like that's why people react so negatively as soon as you start trying to pull them down the yes path, because they've been trapped there before. They know that that cheese that they're being drawn to is actually on a mousetrap that's getting ready to slam on their head as soon as you take a bite out of the cheese. So there are a number of things out there that when they were first proposed, they might have been a good idea, but they've been so overused by people that have cheated us that even if you're good, well-intentioned, the minute you engage in behavior that the slimy salesperson engaged in, the timeshare person who's bankrupting you now, then even if you're a good person, when you imitate that behavior, they got an instinctive gut reaction. What's the phrase? Once bitten by a snake, you're afraid of ropes. That rope's not evil, but the person has been bitten by a snake. Right, that's why you got to be careful with some of those things.
Yeah. So getting the information from them voluntarily. So pausing and okay. That was intense. So the second one is a less intense, less high.
All right. So yeah, now let's tell me something you're passionate about, and then just be willing to go with it. What are you passionate about?
I'm passionate about personal development for young people.
What about personal development for young? What about personal development for young people makes you passionate?
I believe if it was taught in schools, at least a level of like more learning about emotional intelligence in schools, there would be less unhappy people, less depression, less suicide, domestic violence, all this kind of stuff.
Sounds like you actually care about making the world a better place.
Yeah, I do.
Now, how did that feel when I said that?
It sounded very like you're very, what's the word? Wanting to understand me and wanting to like curious about me and why I'm passionate about it.
Right. But tell me how it felt.
It felt good. It felt listened to, felt heard.
Right. That's what we're after. And right after we do the 60 seconds or she dies exercise, when we're teaching the black swan method, we're going to immediately go into that exercise, because for you to understand how effective these skills are, and for you to not be afraid to use the black swan method, it needs to be used on you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's being used on you. And you still respond positively. You know what it feels like to actually be listened to. You know how satisfying that could be. Even when you know it's being used on
Yeah.
you. It feels good. And each time it feels good, as human beings, we're hardwired to collaborate. You just want to collaborate with somebody you're safe with. Paul Ross, co-author of the book, Never Split the Difference, is really written through a collaboration between myself, my son Brandon, and Tal Ross. Tal's a genius writer. And Tal, also a great researcher, said humans are hardwired to collaborate from our ancestors. The ants, the caveman that didn't collaborate died alone in the dark. The caveman that collaborated survived the onslaught from the saber-toothed tiger. They got together and they figured out how to build fire. When they were cold, they all slept together, warmed each other with their body heat. So we're hardwired to collaborate. We just want to know who we're safe to collaborate with. And that's the feeling that using the black swan method engenders in somebody else. You're safe to collaborate with me. I'm not going to hurt you. And the best way to teach that is to get somebody to feel like what it is to be on the receiving end of that.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So apart from trying to get their name straight away, and apart from going down this yes ladder, what are some other things that you see people continually do wrong when it comes to sales or negotiation?
Yeah, well, talking all the time. Like if he or she who talks most loses. So it's how much do you talk? The ratio is really about 5-1. All of us said you should talk. You got 2 ears and 1 mouth. You should listen twice as much as you talk. Well, actually, you got 2 ears, you got 2 eyes, and a nose. That's 5-1. So then, are you actually listening? Or when you talk, are you just waiting for your turn to explain? Ronald Reagan said, if you're explaining, you're losing. Now, love him or hate him, Ronald Reagan's emotional intelligence was through the roof. He knew how to persuade people. If you're explaining, you're losing. So when you do talk, you want to be showing the person you're listening, or you want to be prompting them in certain ways that make them feel like you understand. And so not only do you want to talk the least, but you actually want to demonstrate that you're listening to the other side, as opposed to waiting for your turn to have your say. And most salespeople are trained to make a pitch. They're trained to make the value proposition. The pitch that is so bad. I mean, that's why I think the elevator pitch came into play, because if you're explaining, you're losing. So if you're only explaining for 30 seconds or the length of time you're on an elevator, at least the other side doesn't feel like they want to blow their brains out because they've been listening to you for so darn long.
Yeah.
Let's at least minimize the explaining.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And is there something particularly, like when it comes to, because I'm assuming that the game here, because this is a game, it's the fun, tactical empathy, collaboration. So is it coming to somewhat of an agreement along the way? Then how to, let's say if you're in sales, what point do you know when to be like, okay, so here's the offers, and I guess making the close. Is there any sort of special ways you have to get them to close in a comfortable way without that slimy kind of
Yeah,
way?
well, yes is nothing without how. So ignore yes. And if you get into a how conversation, you got to deal. What is yes is nothing without how means? It doesn't matter how much agreement you have. If you don't have a plan for implementing that agreement, it ain't happening. It just ain't happening. So, yes is nothing. How is everything.
So
Get into a conversation about how.
yeah, so you mean like instead of looking for a yes, is it like, so how do you suggest moving forward? Something like this?
Yeah, what are the next steps? How do
Right.
you want to proceed? If
Ah,
you sense it, and if you sense you're on the verge of an agreement, you say, how do you want to proceed? What are the
yeah.
next steps?
Then you put
How do
the,
we implement this so that we're both happy?
yeah. And then it's, they're essentially closed themselves. You've given the power to them
Exactly.
to develop.
That's right.
Yeah, I love it. Chris, this has been incredible. I know the guys have gotten so much from the show. So where can everybody find you, get your book, check you out, and go through all your stuff?
Yeah, two things. Books on Amazon. I mean, when I buy the book, I buy it on Amazon. It's always the best price. Find it on Amazon. Now, the smart move then is subscribe to our weekly newsletter. It's a complimentary newsletter. That's not why you should subscribe. There's a lot of stuff out there that's free that's a waste of your time. It's concise and it's actionable. You get it on Tuesday morning. Go to our website, blackswanltd.com. Upper right-hand corner is a tab for the blog The Edge. Click on a tab. It'll take you into a bunch of archived articles. We've written concise articles that will be applicable to whatever deal you're in right now. We got stuff on business negotiations, salary negotiations, negotiating down your utility bills for practice. I mean, we've got something that will meet you where you are. Subscribe to The Edge. It'll get you on our subscription list. The Edge, the newsletter, is a gateway to everything. Our website is full of free tools. We need to bring you up to speed wherever you are to get you ready for the more advanced stuff. But you got to lay down the essentials first. Buy the book, subscribe to The Edge, and you will be on your way to some really cool stuff.
Yes. And yeah, absolutely, guys. Yeah, your content's insane. Really just concise. Like, it's like, do this and just changes. It's awesome. So, Chris, one final question to to wrap this up. Are you ready? We'll put you under some pressure now.
You're supposed to say, is it ridiculous if I ask you a final question?
Are you against me asking you one final question to wrap up this show?
Why? Why no?
I love it. So, if you were to go back to your 18-year-old self and give him 30 seconds of advice, what would it be?
Yeah, put as much effort into being nice as you put into being assertive.
Love it. I love it. That was awesome.